Hello, and in today's special video, I'll be explaining how I made this data visualization chart. And for those of you that were able to do it, I'm really impressed. It caught about 3 or 4 people were able to get this right, and 2 people actually did it that same day I sent it out. So we have some Excel gurus among us. So today I will be showing you how I made this from scratch from this data here. Actually, this is one of the data I worked on for someone. I think it's a sample data. So it has just years, different industries, and a number of KPIs they were interested in. And they wanted me to make it into a form of a dashboard, something you could interact with. You could choose what you want to see, and the chart changes, and then you see only the things you're interested in seeing, and you're able to see it over a range of period that makes more sense to you rather than having to scroll up and down trying to make sense of this static data. So these kinds of give your data life and makes it easy to comprehend and make decisions on and see how things are going, see trends. This is actually what you will do when you reporting, when you're making business reports and doing analysis. You in the end you'll have to present everything, no matter how big and how complex and how lengthy, in a form that is easy for people to see, something they won't have to scroll. In making viewing these reports, you won't have to scroll down or scroll to the right, and making everything fit into your your Excel window. You don't have to scroll. It fits into the one page Excel window. And that is the key of every data dashboard. Make it as compact as possible that whoever is going to read it won't have to scroll to the right or scroll down, and they can have everything in a way that they're different groups. You don't model up different data. Everything is in a way that once it sees them, it makes sense. And if you want to see everything, there's the option for everything here also. So now let's go to how I did it. So I'll go to the data and I'll select the entire data. And I'll come to insert. I'll come to pivot table. Pivot table. I've already made a video on pivot table. If you've not watched that before this, I'll suggest you pause this and go watch that first. So here's a pivot table, and I'm going to drag the year to my row label. Then I'll drag the industry, number of firms. I'll drag to value. Then I'll drag price to sales. I'll also drag to value. Now if you notice, for my number of firms is showing some, which is okay, what I need, but for price to sales is showing count of price to sales. Now price to sales is a ratio, and what I want for ratios, when you're doing ratios across several categories, you want to find the aggregate ratio. It's not count you do, it's not sum. What you do is average. So I'm going to change this from count to an average. So I'm going to just click on this. You left click, don't right click, you left click, a normal click. Then you see value field settings. I'll click on it again, and then I'll select average. So I'll move my net margin to values. Also, net margin is a ratio, but it's expressed as percentage. So definitely as a ratio, I have to change it to average for me to capture the valid computation for that. Also, expected growth, it's also a ratio, expected expressed as percentage. So I'm going to do the same, make it average. Then I'll move the EV to sales. EV to sales is a ratio. Once again, I'll select to have it shown as average. And finally, I'll drag my industry name to a filter, so I can decide to select for what industry I want to see. Great. So one other thing is I'm not going to need this to grand total here. So to remove it, I'm going to come to design, grand totals, off for rows and columns. I'm switching it off completely, so it's gone. Then my table is taking, the column headers is taking, column headers are taking too much space. I'm going to remove some redundant text. I don't need to see sum of, so I don't need to see average of. I'm going to do that for everyone. Then I'll want to adjust the width. Great. Okay, then I would like to do, I'll change this to here. Then I would like to give my table some nice formatting. So I'm going to give it a full border. Then I'll make these green. Let's choose this kind of green. Now it's looking better. I'll also make this green. So now for price to sales, well, I don't like these too many decimal points, so I'm going to format it as, give it a comma formatting, so 2 decimal points. That's what I need. For net margin, I'm going to have to show them as percentage, so percentage formatting. Then I give it 2 decimal points. So 2. Expected growth, I like to see it also as a percentage but no decimal points. EV to sales, I like to see it comma formatted, just 2 decimal points. So now the table is looking better. One other thing is, whenever I click on anything on this table, this pivot table field list pops up. And if you notice in my dashboard, nothing like that. Okay, but in the one you originally got, nothing like that. So how do I do that? How do I make it stop showing up? I'll come here, I'll unselect field list so it doesn't show anymore. So I have no field list. If I click on it, it doesn't come up anymore, because I've gotten all I need from the pivot table field list. I'm not going to make any more changes to what I have here. So if I select any industry, then this changes. It's making the data come alive. So I want to make these charts, this chart you're seeing here, I want to make it here. Now, as with pivot table, you can also insert a pivot chart. You can insert a chart. Charts you insert in pivot tables directly from the data from the pivot table, they come as pivot charts. They're a different kind of chart. They're not a regular chart. So I'm going to show you an example. If I come here and I select insert a chart, now you'll see this. I'm having these special filters and different kind of legend. I'm having things in this format. A regular chart doesn't give you all this, so there is no way around it. Even if I delete this and I select that I want to do a chart for just these 2 fields, when I click on the insert chart, I'm still going to end up getting this. So that's the limitation with pivot charts. So to get around this limitation, I have a crude workaround. So what I'll do is, I'm going to replicate this table here. So I'm going to say equals to this. So I'm going to just do a copy of the data here, make it here. So I'll drag this down to copy the formulas and to have for everything. To double click on this to make it compact. Okay, and once again I'll format this as a comma, this as percentage, give it two decimal points, this as comma, this as no, this as percentage, no decimal point, this as comma. Okay, okay, so I have now in here the replica of whatever is here, like a mirror copy of whatever is here. But the good thing about this is not going to have that limitation with inserting a chart directly with the data here, because these data here are not generated normally. There's a big there's a big program in Excel that is making you see this. That's why it's possible for you to click something here and then everything here changes. So okay, let me even expand this to here. So these are not really regular Excel cells anymore. They are now pivot table cells. But these are still my regular Excel cells. If I decide to do a graph of these two only, insert, you can see I'm having the regular Excel chart. So that is why I'm doing that. So now to make that visualization chart, I'm going to select the table I have here, not this. But remember, this is linked to this. If anything changes here, these values here begin to mirror whatever the change here is. And so it's almost, there's no difference. It's just because of that charting that I need to do. That's why I'm using this workaround. So I'll go select insert. When you're doing a combo chart, which is what we want to do, a chart with that's going to have end up looking like this, different. Let's select another industry. It's going to have two. This is a primary axis, primary vertical axis, secondary vertical axis, and then I'm having two different chart types. It's called a combo chart. I'm having line chart, then I'm also having a column chart. And here, this is not the regular axis label. You can see I'm having both the year, the number of firms and the year showing up here as axis label, and we're going to do that here. So to do that, I can only start with, if you're having Excel 2013, it's easier, but this, if you not do it with Excel 2010, you can do it on any Excel version. And so I'm going to select the entire table. I can only start with one chart type, so I'm going to select the column chart, and as usual I prefer using layout 3. Okay, and going to change this chart title. Let's see what I used here. Okay, so I'm going to make it look like this. So there's an easy way to make that happen. Let's see what I typed here: performance analysis. Okay, so I'm going to use a cell here. I will say it will show performance analysis, and whatever is in here. So whenever I change anything in here, I'm having that change mirrored in here. Everything changes in here. So that way I'll have a dynamic chart title. So I want this chart title to be what I have here. It's very easy. You click on the chart title and you come here, you do equals to this cell. So that way I'm having a dynamic chart title. So this is the chart title I'm having. You see, for advertising, I'm having performance analysis advertising. I can make it, I can do some extra formatting to make it much more. Okay, so now if I select for another industry, say apparel industry, I'm having the title reflect that. So that is good. Next is I need to make some changes here. I want my year and number of firms to be showing as axis label instead of 1, 2, 3 to 12. That's what I want to be there. So I'm going to select this first of all, I would like to drag this here so you can always see the effect of what I'm doing in here. Then I'll increase the height. Okay, so I'll select this chart. I'll come to design. I'll say select data, so that way I get to have this full control over what is in here. I can make changes. So as you can see, everything in here, these are where my data series are. You can see that I'm having the same thing here. Everything in here is what is showing here and plotted on this chart. I don't want the year and number of firms to be plotted on this chart, so I'm going to remove them. I removed the year and number of years. I want them rather to show as my axis label instead of 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to say for my axis label, edit. Then where do I want? I want this. What I have here to show as my axis label. And select OK. So now the chart is beginning to look like what I want. Let's increase the width. Yeah, you begin to see it's looking better. Now I would like to have the ratios show as column charts, and then I would like to have the percentages show as line charts. So to do that, I'm going to move all the percentages to a secondary axis. So I'll move them to another axis. So let's start with the percentage at net margin. So net margin, I'll select one of the net margin bars. I'll right click, say format data series, move to secondary axis. Okay, once I move this to secondary axis, I also want to change it to a line chart. It's a trend. I want to see the trend. Trends are better depicted with line charts. So I'll say change. I'll right click and say, let me do that again. Right click and say change series chart type. I'll select a line chart. I'll do OK. I'm going to do the same for expected growth. This is expected growth. I'll move it to secondary axis. I'll change it to a line chart. Change series type to a line chart. Okay, that is done. Then what else am I to do? Then I'll give it the color. I'll give some formatting. Let's give it this. And I like, since I've given, I only like the border to have a matching color among the bars, so I'll probably give this bar another color. So I'm going to, I can come here, I can do that here, or I can do that here. So I can use any of those two options. So I'm going to make these, let me give it another, yeah, I'm going to give it this. Okay, and now I could change this in my chart type. The sample I gave you, you will have noticed that I used another kind of line chart. Then one more thing I'm going to do, I'm going to change this line chart again. I'm going to choose this line with markers. I'm going to do the same for this line with markers. Okay, so this is how you make a combo chart. And now once I'm done, I wouldn't want whoever I'm sending this to see all these other things, because these are what I use to get around the limitations with charting straight from a pivot table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the font color to white so it matches the background and sort of disappears. So it's not going to be visible anymore. And then I'll drag my chart here, and I'll make it a little bigger. So that's how you make. This is the solution to that data visualization chart. You can see it's easy. It's just that if you don't know how to do it, you don't know how to do it. And being able to do these charts, I bet you can make any chart in Excel. This is one of the most complex charts you can do. You'll need do in Excel. And that is it for this video. Let's just rename this, and I'll rename it as dashboard 2. Then I give it a color, a tab color. I'll give it blue. Yeah, blue. And so that is how you do this in Excel. If I change, my chart changes. And that is it. Thank you.